welcome to Gospel Time Podcast with your host, Matthew Travis, coming to you from Gospel Time Studio. God bless you all. Hi everybody, welcome to Gospel Time Podcast with Brother Matthew Travis. Today, I just want to say, if you all live in the east part of the east, it is very cold and it is, God, we got a lot of snow. If anybody out there is listening to me, and it is a privilege to go do something for people when it is snowing or something like that. But really, what the subject I wanted to talk about today comes from the book of Psalms 107, verse 10. And it says, "Such as sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, being bound in affliction and iron." My title today is called God or Affliction. And I'm going to talk about two meanings of affliction that the devil gives you. I want to talk about the affliction that the devil gives you, and I want to talk about the affliction that God allows Satan to give people. So today, the first I want to talk about affliction that Satan gives you. He gives you death, disease, suicidal thoughts, depression, doubt, and anger. When Satan makes you have Satan makes you feel have a affliction, you feel like you're worthless, hopelessness, and you're alone without anyone. So I'm going to tell you that the meaning of affliction it is the state of being afflicted. The cause of persistent pain or distress, great suffering. We're going to have affliction on this earth. You have affliction when someone dies. You have affliction when someone talks about you. You have affliction when someone abuses you. You have affliction when someone gets sick with something serious. You have affliction when someone leaves. And you can, on the corner of a street, you're going to have affliction, which means pain or agony or illness. So what I want to talk about, two people in the Bible that went through affliction. They are Jesus and Job. But first I want to talk about Jesus. So you can name the things that Jesus probably went through. Well, he went through beating, spitting, mocking, and a crown of thorns and nails through his hands. But one thing he never did, he never cried out, but he suffered great affliction. I will read about him going through his affliction. And the first accusation was sedition. The second accusation was blaspheming, and the third accusation was treason. Now, the first, I will read the verse from the Bible. Go to Mark chapter 14, verse 58, and it says, "We have heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with the hands. Within 3 days I will build another made without hands." Now I will read the verse from the second one. Go to Mark chapter 14 and verse 63 to 64. And it says, "Then the high priest rent his clothes and saith, What need we any further witness? We have heard the blaspheming. What think ye? And they all condemned him to be guilty of death." Now I want to read the third verse. Now go to Luke chapter 23 and verse 1 through 2. And it says, "And the whole multitude of them arose and led him unto Pilate." Well, I will go further. I'm just going to take a short break here, and I will be right back with Gospel Time Podcast with your host, Matthew Travis. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in to Gospel Time Podcast. Today's show is pre-recorded. Hi, and welcome back. And now I'm going to read the second verse. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We found this fellow preventing the nation and forbidding to give tribute to the Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ and a king." So they accused Jesus of sedition, blasphemy, treason, and they beat him, spit upon him, mocked him, and put a crown of thorns on him. And they nailed him to a cross. And he was innocent, but he had to suffer that affliction, because now you can get saved and ask Jesus into your heart. Because as you see, when Jesus suffered, he said, "We will suffer also." He said, "If I was persecuted, you will be persecuted also." And the reason for that, because he said he suffered, and we're going to suffer because we're Christians, and some people don't like Christians, so we're definitely going to suffer, because God wants us to, if you're not saved, he wants us to come to him, and he wants us to have a brand new life in him. So now I will read on. I want to talk about Job now, but first I want to read two verses from Job chapter 1, verse 21, and Job 2:10, and I will read Job 1:21 first, and it says, "And said, came out of my mother's womb, the Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Now I want to read from Job chapter 2, verse 10. And it says, "But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall not we not receive evil? And all this did Job sin with his lips." Now I want to talk about Job. I'm reading this from a book called The Book of Job Unfolded. So please listen when I read. And I quote, "We have seen Job in his piety and prosperous estate. We are now to see him in his sad poverty, and to witness his behavior in affliction. And change his circumstances often makes a great change in men themselves, or at least exposes a new and previously unsuspected side of their character, and develops unusual results. Sometimes it brings to light defects that had never been dreamed of in those who were exstated almost faultless, who were esteemed almost. Sometimes it would resolve exceedingless emergencies, or the marketing of some men, and the destruction of others. The former rise in greatness and in every noble quality of soul and proposition, to the increasing demands of occupation, the latter of unable to imbibe the severity of the test appealed to them, and fall before it. How will it be with Job? a disclosure is made an outset to the readers of this book of things that are concealed from the human actors in it. The veil that hides the unseen word, particularly drawn aside so as to afford us a glimpse of a spiritual agent who is to give a new turn events. The arch enemy of man has had his eye upon Job, the true to instincts of his own vile nature. He has no faith in the reality of goodness. He sees in the piety of Job nothing but a refined form of selfishness. He serves God but because it is in his interest to do so. God protects and blesses him in as a manner. Of course, he inclines to the quarter from which the favors come, but if these favors were to cease, the temper urges Job piety would vanish with them. His goodness has its spring, and his attendants rewards withhold the latter, and Job will soon take leave of God and his service, which no longer yields any advantage. Well, I will be right back with some more Gospel Time podcast. Just stay tuned, please, and we'll be right back. God bless you all. Hi, and welcome back to Gospel Time Podcast with Brother Matthew Travis. Now let us read on. Satan is allowed to bring to an issue this question, which he has raised. He may put Job's piety to rest, and in him he may test the question whether there is such a thing as real godliness in the earth, and godliness that is not merely self-seeking, but which heartily loves the light and clings to it, and chooses to serve God through no hope of profit, may be forthcoming. Job is on trial through he knows it not, and unfriendly eyes are eagerly watching from his stumbling, and he is on trial not maternally for himself. The cause of religion is separated in him. The cause of God on earth through he also is of the dictatory of his possession of the importance of battle he faces. Job is unaware that the eyes of the Lord are turned upon him with approval, and with a livery seeing from the favorable outcome of struggle in which he is engaged of spiritual significance of his translation. Job is profoundly ignorant. He feels the terrible pressure of his heavy sorrows, but he is not aware that they have been sent upon him as a test of character. He knows nothing of Satan's malicious designs that center upon proving Job's love for God a mere show. He knows nothing of the sovereign purpose of God, who means to establish it reality and the power of confusion of the temper. Yeah, that is right. Job went through a lot, and God allowed, now I want to talk about a little bit how God allowed Job to test Job's faith, and see how much his faith was in God. And also, he So if you are down here on earth and you're thinking when you're doing a job or something and you're saying, wow, I have a lot of pain, I got to stop. Don't think of that, because if you're thinking of Job, when you think of Job went way through more pain than any of us did on this earth. He went through way more pain than we did. So don't complain when you're on a job. Do not complain that you are going through pain. I know we go through pain down here, but don't complain, because Job went through way more pain. He went through his oxen being stilled, his cattle, his sheep, and his sons and daughters all dying. And one day, probably. And so please, if you're out there, if you're complaining about work or something, don't do that, because Job went through a lot more pain. And Jesus went through a lot of pain too. And more, I can name even more. Peter, Paul, and Jeremiah went through a lot of pain. Jeremiah was put in prison and a lot of times. And Peter was put in prison a lot too. And Paul went through a lot too. But at the end of it, he ran to the chopping block. And he ran with faith. And he let them do it so he can go to heaven. So I just want to say, if you're suffering affliction out there, I hope God will help you through it, and that He will take that affliction away from you. I know we're going to still have pain, but if you are hurting and you are really hurting with affliction, I know God can take that away from you. Well, I thank you for tuning in to Gospel Time Podcast. You can get this on all the podcast sites and YouTube and CD and audio download, and you can listen to on Mixler Live on SGM Radio. So it's called SGM Radio. I'll have the link down there, and so please subscribe on YouTube and follow on Mixler and any of the podcasts. Well, God bless you all, and I hope this podcast will help you today and encouraged you and gave you hope. Well, have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time on Gospel Time Podcast. And if you are wondering how to download my podcast, go to the website down below and just click. Have a little box with a straight line going up, and just click it, and then you can download my podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Gospel Time Podcast. God bless you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless you all. This show today was pre-recorded.